Okay, we are live and we're back with another Between the Pages book chat. And today our guest is fantasy author Katharine Wibell, and I will turn it over to her. Oops, forgot to tell her what book we're talking about today. We're talking about her fantasy series, The Guardian Speaker, and it's all about Vikings, so that'll be fun today. So I'll turn it over to her now and let her introduce herself. Take it away.
Okay, hi everyone. Like I said, my name is Katharine Wibell. I'm a fantasy author. I write in several different series. They're in different age brackets. So today's The Guardian Speaker is my adult novella series, and it's a little darker and a little more complex than some of my others that are focused more on the young adult or the new adult side. But this series has 3 books out currently, though actually the latest novella was released this past Friday. So that's exciting for me at least. But the series itself, again, pertains to Nordic mythology. And obviously we're going to feature all 9 realms in Yggdrasil. So that's the world tree. Some of you may be familiar with some of the more iconic characters like Odin and Loki. I chose to focus on some very obscure mythos. So though, yes, I will be talking about the gods and some of the other entities that exist, I'll be focusing on the concept of the Fulgir. And the Fulgir are your animal-shaped guardian spirits. Everyone is born with them. They're one of your 4 parts of self. The Vikings believe that, kind of a little different than what we think, mind, body, souls, kind of more the modern interpretation, but the Viking culture kind of believed that you have 4 parts of self. You had the hammer, which was your physical body, the hugr, which was your mind and soul together, Fulgir, which again, those animal guardian spirits that are kind of like their guardian angels of sorts, and your hummingr, which was your personal luck that kind of goes through family lines. So taking that kind of concept, I created my mythos where my main character, Leaf, was born with the ability to see and communicate with every person's Fulgir, so their animal spirits. And unfortunately for her, because no one else can see them, they kind of viewed her, they've treated her as an outcast. They kind of, a lot of them think she's crazy because they see her talking to herself, not realizing she's actually truly capable of talking to these and communicating with these animal guardians. But having a main character, which was not this warrior woman archetype, which I do prefer to write about, was kind of a fun challenge for me. And through her eyes, you get to see a lot of kind of fun cultural aspects of the people who lived in the Viking era dealt with. I did a lot of research and history. So anything from the material, the clothes they wore, their culture, their ceremonies throughout the year, all that was heavily researched. But the fun thing for the series itself is that my main character, Leaf, again, viewed as an outsider, so to speak, comes across another person who has a similar ability. Unfortunately, he's also bringing a warning to all people he comes across that there's a plague going to affect the hummingr, which is your personal luck. And if one part of yourself dies, you as a whole will soon follow. So because the hummingr are dying, humanity is threatened. So he's coming in and lets her know that he, because he has his ability, has the potential to stop this threat. The problem is that he's brought in as a slave and he's not hers to free. So that kind of kicks off my series.
Cool. So how did you get interested in the Norse culture and the Norse mythology? Has it always been an interest, or did you just pick it up for this book?
Well, I guess everything's a little more complicated than black and white. I've always loved mythology ever since growing up. From really young ages, was the weirdo that would be like, I want the encyclopedia on world mythology for my birthday present. Thank you. But so I've always loved mythos from around the world. And more recently, since I do have some Scandinavian lineage, I think I started focusing a little bit more slowly toward the Nordic lore of recent years. And then when I stumbled upon this concept of the Fulgir, which is the animal spirits, I fell in love with it so much that I kind of really wanted to make sure that I could write it in a series, because I've never heard of it before, and I was wondering, why hasn't anybody else touched on that topic? But so that's why I wanted to share that one with the world, because I thought it was really fascinating.
Okay, yeah, we share similar tastes in mythology, and except I went Celtic and not Norse because of my heritage. So,
hey, there you go. Celtic is fascinating too.
yeah, although there's a lot of Norse in Scottish, in some of the Scottish mythology in later years too. So, I dabble.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
So, tell us a little bit about the main character. What's her personality like?
She's very kind of mild in the beginning, very meek. Again, having her ability, instead of, you know, rising to a challenge, as you may have seen others that have magical abilities and then they're viewed as popular or whatever. She's the opposite. She's always been shunned and obscure. So she's very quiet, likes her life, doesn't like to deal with a lot of people, which is very different than most of her society. Her siblings, her two older siblings, whom they live in this communal house, are warriors. So you have the one kind of representative of the standard male of the culture during the time. So he's a farmer during the off season, but they go to the raiding season during the summer. And then she has the oldest one is a shield maiden. So again, I gotta play with that warrior woman, which is my favorite archetype. But so you have these two powerful siblings, sister and brother, and then you have Leaf, who's just kind of a homebody to begin with, and then she's pulled onto this adventure begrudgingly that will again span throughout the whole Nordic cosmos.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about some of the secondary characters. Are they a little quirky, a little scene stealers, or?
I think a few of them might become that way. Again, when I was approaching this series, I did want to show good examples of the common kind of man and the common woman, and then some that are more iconic, et cetera, so on. So I do touch on, especially as the series goes, a variety of characters. You have like you'll get in down the line and meet a character who's an Ufilinen, and he is a wolf warrior, one of the elite kind of force, but they're known to kind of have a poor temperament. So, you know, he's very strong and a capable warrior, but people can't really trust that he's not a loose cannon, so to speak. But one of my quirkier characters is actually, his name's Skeggy, and he's their Leaf's brother's best friend. And his personality, he's this very big, amenable guy. He thinks he's funny. Leaf's not so sure, but he's very chummy with the family. He comes off as kind of like the joking, a sibling that kind of picks on her sometimes. And so she's not necessarily a friend of him, but he's smitten with Herver, which is the sister who's a shield maiden. And so he's always chasing after her, and she is not about it. But so she's more of the, I'll pull a dagger and like point it at your throat if you continue to like try to court me. And he's like, okay.
Apparently he likes women like that, does he?
Oh, yes. The feisty woman.
Okay, so what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the series?
So far, I don't know. I don't know if there's any particular one scene. Again, the hard part is I do want to capture Nordic mythos as a whole, and I do want to show and share with readers Nordic mythos as true to form as it was perceived back in the day. And so I've done, like I said, a lot of research on everything I could from all the different worlds and the creatures, and if they were described with any specific attributes, what were they? And so for me, the harder part was trying to figure out how to fit it all in and how to be able to debut and show in a logical manner the 9 realms, the different entities. There are 3 races of elves, then there's the dwarves, then there's, other obscure creatures that people may not be as familiar with. So I was trying to figure out how to put all that in. I'm a person who loves action scenes, so I'm pretty comfortable with those. I'm weaker, I think, on the the in-between, the connecting scenes where I'm trying to make sure everything flows together well between, you know, an action scene or a big dialogue, like how do you get from point A to point B? I think that's the stuff that's a little more challenging for me.
Yeah, it's challenging for a lot of us, I think.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite scene or type of scene that you wrote in the series?
Okay, I always like, again, high action. So if there's a skirmish going on, I like to debut mythical beings and beasts. So if I'm introducing a creature, that's always fun for me. But it's kind of hard. Again, I don't know if I have one particular favorite scene, but I do like, especially since the series begins relatively realistic, obviously, you have these animal forms that are running around, these beings, but if you disregard that, it's pretty realistic. So when I have those opportunities to toy with the reader and say, hey, it's going to unfold in a bigger way. You're going to see something, you get a little glimpse or a little something suggestive of something bigger or another creature coming down the path in the future. That's kind of fun for me as well.
Right, so what can readers expect in the series in the way of myth and fantasy, gods and things?
Well,
without
like
spoilers.
I said, yeah, exactly. I do want to be able to touch on all the above at some point, but I am keeping the gods till like the end because, I mean, I think a lot of times they're used as main characters or major side characters in books or series pertaining to Norse literature. So instead of bringing out Thor from book one, you will probably glimpse them from a distance right at the end of the series, but not necessarily have like heavy interaction with them. But with that said, I love, again, the obscure or beast and beings and some of the more iconic ones. So Fenrir the giant wolf, Jormundir the world serpent. You know, I do want to make sure people get to see those and experience interactions with those creatures. Ratatoskr, the squirrel that runs up and down the trunk of the world tree. So I do like the concept where I can go and find ways to share with readers those kind of big players.
Yeah, and Norse mythology has quite a few of them.
Yes, they do.
Okay, and we have a viewer from my group chiming in here with a little comment. Said obscure is always good in my book, so.
Yay!
All right, so what are your characters afraid of?
My main character, again, I wanted her to be challenging me to have someone that has phobias and has overt weaknesses from the get-go, and having me evolve her throughout the series. And so one of her big things, she has major seasickness and a phobia of water, and being, again, based off the Viking era people who being in and around and on the water was such a huge aspect of their culture. It's hard for her to understand and relate to a lot of her people because she doesn't get it. She likes the dry land. She doesn't want to go on these big adventures. She doesn't care about what lays beyond the world or, you know, her little island village. And so she does early on have to get over forcefully the concept of traveling over the water. But each character has some, and I think that's the best way to have it, a quirk or flaw or fear, because I think everybody has a quirk, flaw, fear. So that just makes them that much more realistic. And so I have one character who's scared of heights, and you realize that a little late in the game that he actually is petrified of heights when he's scaling, you know, these giant cliffs, and he just locks up. You have others that are, their fears are more, less environmental. For instance, Otter, the brother, his biggest fear is if this plague is real, what's going to happen to his children? And he wants to, you know, protect his children and find a way to stop this upcoming threat before it affects his family. And so, I mean, some of the fears are, you know, a little more complex, I think.
Okay, so do you have a favorite character?
Oh, my favorite character would be, I think my favorite character, I have two. I do like Herber, again, the Shield Maiden. I I just love women warrior types. But I think the other one I like, again, I mentioned him a little bit, is Skeggy, because he's the comic relief for a little bit, and his relentless pursuit of the Shield Maiden, who just does not care and kind of looks at him, at least initially, rather loathingly. I like their interactions and some of their conversations between the two. But yeah, I do tend to like strong warrior type women. So Herbert would be my pick.
Okay, so you obviously write fantasy, of course, but are there any other genres or that you'd like to try or that you have tried?
Right now, I'm fantasy forward, so I can never say never, so I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But with the series, because I have two I'm putting out currently, obviously the Guardian Speaker we're talking about today. I have a young adult adventure fantasy series I'm also releasing. Currently, that's the Jed Chronicles. But all my other ideas going forward are still fantasy forward. So right now, I think I'm going to be sticking with fantasy for a little while.
Did you find it hard from switching from YA to a more darker material?
I think it's the opposite. My first series, thought I was going to write YA and ended up being new adult because it ended up just being darker. I do tend to list to the darker content. So it's more of a challenge for me to write YA and make sure it stays YA. Especially when you have characters that are growing up and then, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, they can deal with harder challenges, but then the readership, may not be ready for that. So it's the opposite. I think it's harder for me to stick with a YA than risk slipping into darker material.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Okay. Well, thank you. First, thank you for having me today. This was a lot of fun. But you can find me. I have a website. It's Katharine Wibell Books, and that I'll spell it out because my name is a little different. That's Katharine, which is spelled Katharine. Wibell, which is spelled W, I as in ink, B as in boy, ELL, books.com. And there you can check out the Guardian Speaker and all my other series and follow me in the future for other kind of fun events. But yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
It was fun chatting with you.
And I have her series linked in the description if anyone wants to check it out. And so that's it for today. And join us again next weekend when we have another author to talk to. So bye for now.
Bye.